And I call Joe Fitzpatrick.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government whether it will provide an update on what engagement it has had with the University of Dundee regarding its financial recovery plan and proposed reduction in staffing.
I call the Minister, Graham Day.
Presiding Officer, from the outset I want to put on record that my thoughts and those of this Government are with the Dundee staff and their families and of course students who will be understandably upset and anxious about the scale of the cuts proposed yesterday. The Cabinet Secretary and I wrote to the Interim Principal of Dundee yesterday to outline our deep concern at the extent of the measures currently being proposed by the senior management team. We stressed the importance of taking every effort to minimise the impact on jobs and that compulsory redundancies should only be considered as a last resort after all other cost-saving measures have been fully exhausted. We have assured the University that it will continue to have the full support of the Government to return itself to a sustainable footing, and I want to reassure Parliament that we will continue to explore all means possible to support the University.
Joe Fitzpatrick.
I thank the Minister for his response. Presiding Officer, Dundee University is internationally renowned for its research and its teaching. This afternoon I met with union representatives at the University and heard understandably that staff are deeply concerned about their jobs and the reputation of the University. Does the Minister agree that the current proposal from senior management at the University and the scale of job losses being suggested are simply not acceptable? And does he agree that they must urgently get around the table with unions and the workforce to produce a recovery plan that explores every possible option to save jobs?
Minister.
Job losses are unfortunately going to be unavoidable given the scale of the issue at the University of Dundee. It's essential that everything is done to manage down the number being talked about. We're actively encouraging the University to work with trade unions, senior leaders across the city region and the sector to explore all possible measures to mitigate impacts to student, staff and of course to Dundee's world-class research base. Further, there is a wealth of expertise within the sector and amongst those who have retired from the sector who might be keen to support Dundee, and ministers have asked University Scotland to work with them in this regard. And additionally, if, having scrutinised the draft financial recovery plan, the SFC believes it necessary or the University has a specific ask around further financial support for the institution, then that is something ministers will consider.
Joe Fitzpatrick.
I thank the Minister for his response and his efforts. Presiding Officer, the hostile environment on immigration, which is badly damaging international student recruitment, compounded by the UK national insurance hike, costing Dundee University an extra £2.3 million this year, are factors affecting universities across the UK, but there remains little transparency about how the university got into this position, so it's little wonder that staff have a lack of confidence in the senior management's ability to come up with a credible recovery proposal. Can the Minister advise what further support can be offered to the university to bring in the required expertise without resorting to the employment of another senior manager at an eye-watering cost of £200,000, and how can we assure transparency going forward?
Minister.
It's welcome and necessary that Dundee is committed to an external investigation into what went wrong, and I am keen to see that work progressed. Shaping and then implementing a recovery plan which minimises job losses whilst returning the institution to financial stability is of course the immediate imperative, but the initial work done on identifying how the university got itself into this situation has left many questions unanswered, and we need to address that in parallel with that. Full transparency in all of this is needed here for those directly affected, but also with a view to understanding whether different approaches to governance and oversight might have prevented this from unfolding as it has. And transparency needs to be in play also around how some of the proposed cost-cutting measures have been arrived at, in order that alternative measures might be properly explored. And on the point of accessing the required expertise without incurring additional costs, as I noted a moment ago, we are engaging with University of Scotland to see what help might be available to the institution.
Maurice Golden.
Presiding Officer, the loss of so many jobs is a horrendous blow to both higher education in Scotland and Tayside in particular. So, in order to help prevent an exodus of skills and to support the local economy, would the Minister consider working with colleagues to create an innovation hub focused around emerging technologies such as AI?
Minister.
In short, Presiding Officer, yes. because I think we're in a situation where we should be open to collaborating as far as that's possible to explore all of the options that might be available. So I'm certainly willing to explore that with Mr Golding.
Michael Mara.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Yesterday made clear to all those who did not already know that the University of Dundee requires a government response equivalent to an industrial bailout. The lack of urgency and visibility from the government is clear. I do have a specific ask, and I know that the University will welcome it. Will the Scottish Government increase the £15 million loan previously committed by a further £30 million as a loan across 15 to 20 years? And will they underwrite a £30 million credit facility to allow the University to obtain bank finance, via the SFC or otherwise? This would allow the University to open a voluntary severance scheme within far sooner and at long last stop the bleeding that threatens the existence of my city's most important institution. Thank you, First Minister.
Minister.
Presiding Officer, as I said a moment ago, and as I said in relation to Maurice Golding, we're willing to explore and engage with the University of Dundee on all matters, and if they have a reasonable ask, then we will explore that. But I do gently say to Michael Mara that just as we will commit to that, I do hope his party and himself will acknowledge their part in the challenges that the University of Dundee face, accepting that Dundee University face a number of things way beyond anything that other universities are facing. Because the ENIX issue has compounded the situation at Dundee. The rising, spiralling costs of energy have compounded the issue at the University of Dundee. And like every university, the unwillingness of the current UK Government to revisit the issue, it has everything to do with it, Mr Mara. And I have to say again, gently, that you cannot sit credibly and demand more money for the University of Dundee if you, Mr Mara, and your party both refused to back the monies that were contained within the budget. You cannot, Mr Mara, you cannot be credible in that space.
Thank you. There's a great deal of interest in this issue, and I'd be keen to get all members in. So if we could be concise, that would be helpful. And I call Maggie Chapman.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I want to begin by expressing my solidarity and concern for the welfare of staff and students at Dundee University. This is bigger than Timex, it's bigger than NCR. These are the biggest cuts the city has faced in over 30 years. Trade unions have been begging for proper engagement for 4 months now. They want to know how they can help, but they still haven't seen the books or received answers to their questions. Does the Minister agree that rather than spending £200,000 on a hatchet man to come in and cut these jobs, that money would be much better spent on bringing staff and students round the table in a participative and engaging process that actually provides the help that the interim principal says he needs to get through this recovery plan process? Minister.
Presiding Officer, I recognise entirely the point that Maggie Chapman makes and Joe Fitzpatrick made about the £200,000 Transformation Director approach that's been mooted. And as I said a moment ago, we are looking for the University of Scotland to work with us to provide the kind of expertise that might be available and helpful to the University. But she's absolutely right, Presiding Officer. Of course, there must be an opportunity for the trade unions and the staff to sit down. My understanding is that there was further insight provided to staff late yesterday beyond the briefing that gives some more detail around the financial recovery plan. But there must be an opportunity for them to bring forward viable alternative cost-cutting proposals that can save these jobs, or at least some of these jobs.
Willie Rennie.
There is a degree of frustration and despondency within the wider Dundee area, including in my constituency, with the threatened job losses. And there's a frustration that the government isn't ready with an additional offer. And I know the government have provided the £15 million of financial transactions to the wider sector, but we must surely be able to act much more swiftly than this. People are worried about their future. So when is the Minister going to be able to come forward with a boosted offer to provide some certainty and stability for the institution?
Minister.
Well, as I think Mr Rennie heard at the Education Committee this morning from the Cabinet Secretary, we have the SFC actively scrutinising the plan with a view to come back, hopefully by the start of next week, with further advice to ministers. We await that advice. And as I said a moment ago, we are perfectly willing to consider any asks in this space. But as matters stand, there has been no ask from the University of Dundee for specific additional support beyond what the SFC will be looking to provide at its board meeting tomorrow.
Audrey Nicholl.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The Leverhulme Research Centre for Forensic Science at the University of Dundee works with Justice Partners to provide a range of forensic services in Scotland, with work ongoing to establish a national drug checking service and a Forensic Science Institute for Innovation for Scotland as part of the Tay City Region deal. I understand that staff, both externally grant-funded and fully tenured funded by the Scottish Funding Council, are at risk of redundancy, and this would be a significant blow for the future provision of forensic services in Scotland. So I welcome the Minister's response so far, but can he provide any further reassurance specifically on the future of the centre, given its importance to the delivery of justice in Scotland and its potentially critical role through drug testing to the efforts to reduce drug deaths?
Minister.
Presiding Officer, I think the situation with the Leverhulme Institute is that it is externally funded through to next year, so it's in a slightly different position, although I accept that the staff are the subject of consultation. But amongst the things that the SFC will be considering as they go through the proposed financial recovery plan are any consequences from what's being proposed, which have serious impacts way beyond the confines of the university itself. This cannot be a recovery predicated coldly and purely on saving money, regardless of the implications for staff, students and wider stakeholders. Major savings are going to have to be made by the institution, and we cannot get away from that. But the SFC will be interrogating very closely this proposed plan, and staff need to be given a chance to input ideas which might mitigate the nature and the scale of the impact.
Mercedes Villalba.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. This morning I joined UCU members, local Labour councillors and members of our community on the picket line at the University of Dundee, where workers are still reeling from the announcement that 632 posts are on the line. This outrageous decision will undermine the future of the university. It will hit workers, it will hit students and it will hit the whole of Dundee. Will the Scottish Government meet with campus unions to discuss how it can support them to appoint forensic accountants to examine any financial mismanagement at the University of Dundee?
Minister.
Well, on the point about scrutinising what has happened at the University of Dundee, there is an external, genuinely external piece of work to be done to examine that. But I do take the point about the unions having the right and the need to be satisfied about the explanation that's provided. So I think there's a great deal of work to be done at the institution to rebuild trust, if that's possible, between management and the trade unions, and that starts with far better engagement than we've had up until now.
Miles Briggs.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. If these proposals do go forward, they will result in 20% of the university staff losing their jobs. Now, these concerns became apparent in November. Can I ask the Minister if the Government now intend to be directly involved in the development of a recovery plan? And specifically, can I ask in relation to the £50 million the Scottish Government have made accessed during the budget, is there other opportunities ministers have now looked towards in terms of bridging loans for the organisations? Because we are seeing university after university now coming forward with financial difficulties, and that's something the Scottish Government will need to respond to.
Minister.
So Mr Briggs, I think, is aware that for legitimate reasons, not the least of which is the preservation of ONS classification, on which all institutions depend, there have to be degrees of separation between government and universities, because universities are autonomous institutions. So everything that will be done is through the SFC. That is the conduit for this. In the context of further support for the University of Dundee, as I've said multiple times in the last few minutes, we are open to considering any approaches that come from the SFC, either directly on behalf of the University of Dundee or through their reading of the financial recovery plan and the situation there. And as I indicated, I think, to Willie Reddy a moment ago, we expect to get further advice on that early next week.
And Pam Duncan-Clancy.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. And I too send my solidarity to the staff and the communities in Dundee who will face significant heartache after yesterday's news. The Minister has said to the Chamber multiple times this afternoon that he will consider anything that comes forward, that he will look to the SFC to see what they're going to do. He's looking to the institution to see what they're going to do. What exactly is the Government going to do?
Minister.
Well, Presiding Officer, the Government has already provided the SFC with £15 million to help universities such as the University of Dundee. And of course, I need to point out again that the Labour Party failed to support that move.
Thank you. That concludes the urgent question. The next item of business is consideration of Business Motion 16768 in the name of Jamie Hepburn on behalf of the Parliamentary Bureau setting out a business programme, and I call on Jamie Hepburn to move the motion.
Move, Presiding Officer.
Thank you, Minister. No member has asked to speak to the motion. The question is that motion 16768 be agreed. Are we all agreed? Yes. The motion is therefore agreed. The next item of business is consideration of two Parliamentary Bureau motions, and I ask Jamie Hepburn on behalf of the Parliamentary Bureau to move motions 16769 and 16770 on approval of SSIs.
Move, Presiding Officer.
Thank you, Minister. And the question on these will be put at decision time. And there are 5 questions to be put as a result of today's business. And can I remind members that if the amendment in the name of Shirley-Ann Somerville is agreed to, the amendments in the name of Jackie Bailey and Maggie Chapman will fall. And the first question is that Amendment 16755.3 in the name of Shirley-Ann Somerville, which seeks to amend motion 16755 in the name of Russell Finlay on protecting single-sex spaces in the public sector, be agreed. Are we all agreed? No. The Parliament is not agreed, therefore we'll move to a vote, and there will be a short suspension to allow members to access the digital voting system.